Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Furlong, and today we're talking about energy in the ecosystem. So at the core of every organism's interaction with the environment is its need for energy, and that energy will be used to power all of life's processes. But where does that energy come from? Well, we know ultimately it's coming from the sun, but it comes in the form of light and heat. So how does that energy get into the ecosystem for living organisms? And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Because the most important abiotic factor in an ecosystem is the energy that's coming in. The more energy that an ecosystem has, the more organisms that ecosystem can support. But first we have to be able to get that energy into the ecosystem. Everything that you see in green in this picture are considered to be primary producers. These are organisms that can carry out the process called photosynthesis. This is the process in which light is absorbed from the sun, along with oxygen and carbon dioxide to be able to make food. And so these organisms are known as primary producers. We might oftentimes think of these as just the plants, but there are other things that can carry out photosynthesis besides plants, but we'll kind of be focusing on this idea of plants as the primary producers. What they're producing, of course, is the food. This is where our energy is coming from. Any organism that can make their own food is called an autotroph. So auto means self, troph means to feed. So literally these are self-feeders. They can just hang out in the sun and make food. Most organisms can't do this, however. We are consumers. We have to rely on other organisms for our energy. So we have to eat something. And I don't always like using that word eat because that connotates that we're putting food into our mouth and chewing it and so on. But not all organisms have to do that. But they somehow have to obtain energy from some other organism. Any organism that has to eat another organism for its energy is also called a heterotroph. So again, here we see that word troph meaning to eat, hetero meaning other. So they're getting their energy from other organisms. Consumers and heterotrophs, sometimes we can use those terms interchangeably. Same thing with the primary producers and the autotrophs. But looking at the consumers, there are 6 different categories of consumers. If you take a look at these organisms here, they're all eating plant material. So what would we call these? That's right, they are herbivores. They are organisms that will obtain their energy from some kind of autotroph. Mostly it's going to be plants, but again it could be some other microscopic organism that can carry out photosynthesis. Let's take a look at this next group of consumers. They have to eat other organisms as well to get their energy. But specifically, what kind of organisms? So we would call these carnivores. Carnivores have to kill their prey in order to get their energy. Let's look at this next group of animals. They also get their energy from other animals, but unlike the carnivores, they're usually getting their energy from organisms that have already died. So these are known as scavengers, and around here we might see things like the buzzards. We also see these little worm-like things called maggots. These will ultimately become flies, but you'll oftentimes find them on dead animals, and they will, in just a matter of a few days, be able to dispose of the carcass. Now this next group of animals, you'll see they have something similar. They are the omnivores. Yes, they are obtaining energy from both producers and consumers. So they will eat other animals, and they'll also eat plants as well. Of course, as humans, we would also fall under the omnivore category. This next group of organisms were originally thought to be plants until we realized that they don't carry out photosynthesis. They also are consumers. These are known as decomposers. Now, decomposers will chemically break down organic matter, and it could be that the organism has died. They're not considered a scavenger because they're slowly breaking it down over time. So anytime you see any sort of fungus, those are chemically breaking down organic matter that's in the soil or maybe growing on an old log. They are a big part of recycling matter within an ecosystem. This last group of animals do look familiar to you. We see earthworms all the time, or the little roly-polies. What they're eating is organic matter that's found usually in the dirt, although it doesn't have to be. And they are referred to as detritivores. They're not actually eating the dirt, they're eating the organic matter that's been decomposing in the dirt. So for instance, when we have leaves decomposing in the dirt, that's the stuff that the earthworms are eating, is the breakdown from those leaves. Any organic matter that gets mixed in with some abiotic factors is oftentimes referred to as detritus. That was a quick look at the different types of consumers. I know that some of this is stuff you've had before, but I just wanted to make sure that we're all up to speed before we continue on. In the next video, we're going to be taking a look at how energy is transferred among these organisms. I'll see you then.